We are going to do some more inequalities. Okay, so just like what we did inequalities before, we have some sort of expression here that's not linear. We can't just like add numbers to both sides and solve for x and no. We are going to have to use a number line test. We're going to have to do a little bit of algebra with these things right here. But first, what I want is for us to look at the graph of x minus 3 over x plus 4. That graph looks like this. So turn to your neighbor. Where is this graph greater than or equal to 0? And where is it less than or equal to 0? Talk about that. Okay. Where is this graph greater than or equal to 0?
Inside the left line.
What do you mean inside the left line? Could you say like from here to here using x coordinates?
Yeah, from -5 to -infinity.
From -5 to negative. Okay, so from -infinity to -5. Do we agree? Well, here's -5. I see it actually on the other side there. So I might not say -5 here. From -infinity to -4. Okay. So yeah, here's -5. -4 is right there. That's our asymptote. It's -4. Okay. Would I want to use brackets or parentheses here?
Brackets.
Abby, what do you think?
Parentheses.
Why parentheses?
Because it's like going to infinity.
Yeah. Does x equal -4 in this graph? Do we have a value for x equals -4? No, exactly what you said. You're right. It's going to infinity. We have an asymptote there. So it's positive, but it never reaches -4. It's almost there. Bracket means we do equal that number. Parentheses means we don't equal that number. So we never equal -4. So from -infinity to -4. And then from where to where is it positive?
-4 to infinity.
-4 to infinity. What about this part right here? That's negative.
From like 2 to
Okay, 2 to infinity. Remember the equation was x minus 3 over x plus 4.
maybe, I don't know, I can't like see the graph exactly.
So, well, yeah, if this was the equation,
Then 3 to
yeah, 3 to infinity. Yeah, so the 0. And would that be a bracket or a parentheses if we're saying greater than or equal to 0? Bracket, yes, because we do equal 0 at 3. Okay, so answer this question with your partner. Where does a function like this change from positive to negative or from negative to positive? At what points on the graph? And answer this for all graphs like this. Graphs like this will change signs at the blank and the blank. Okay, where are the two places a graph like this is going to change sign?
The x-intercept.
The x-intercept and
The vertical asymptote.
and the vertical asymptote, yes. So here it's above, and then suddenly on the other side of the asymptote it's below, and then at the x-intercept. Exactly. Okay, let me see if I can clear this easily. Hopefully I can. Maybe not. Yes, I can. Great. Let's make that actually a 1. Okay, so since that's where they change signs, we are going to use those x values on our number line test. And so we saw the graph already, so we should remember this, but where was the vertical asymptote for this graph? At x equals -4, right? And so that, remember, that's where the denominator equals 0. And where was the x-intercept? 3. And that's where the numerator equals 0. So that's how we're going to find these two numbers, just like we would if we were graphing it. We just set the top and bottom equal to 0, and the two x values that we get, those go on our number line. Oops. Okay, so once we have our numbers on our number line, we just do a number line test like normal. Again, we know the answer to this already, we saw it, but let's just see it in action here. So what's a number to the left of -4 that we could plug in? Yeah, -5. So if we plug in -5, it's -5 minus 3 over -5 plus 4. That's a negative divided by a negative, which is positive. What's a number between -4 and 3 that would be really good to use? 0. If I plug in 0, I can see that's the y-intercept. It's -3/4. So it's negative. And then a number greater than 3, 4. So we do 4 minus 3 over 4 plus 4. That's a positive divided by a positive, which is a positive. And so since we are solving this inequality for where this is greater than or equal to 0, I want the positive answers. If the sign is switched around, then I want the negative answers. So we have to read the equation. It's not always the positive. But we say from negative infinity to negative 4, parentheses, 3 to infinity, but 3 has a bracket. Okay, turn to your neighbor. Why are there mixed parentheses and brackets here? Why does one get one and the other doesn't? Okay, so why does negative 4 get a parentheses?
Because it's the location of the vertical asymptote.
Yes. Oh gosh, I know how to spell. Parentheses. So your vertical asymptote will always get parentheses. Because x cannot equal negative 4 in this case. There's no graph there. It's going to infinity and negative infinity. For the x-intercept, it depends on the inequality. So if it's greater than, strictly greater than, it would be parentheses. If it's greater than or equal to 0, it's going to be a bracket. Just like what we did with polynomials. Okay, you guys try this one. Okay, what numbers are going to go on our number line?
-5 and +2.
Okay, this one right now is less than or equal to 0. So I know right now one of those numbers is definitely going to get parentheses. Which one?
+2.
Yeah, 2, because it's the
Asymptote.
vertical asymptote. So maybe it's helpful to just put parentheses around that to remind yourself. Is -5 going to get brackets or parentheses? Brackets, because why? It's the 0. Does the 0 always get brackets?
It's because the equation says it can be equivalent to 0, and if it's -5, then there's going to be a 0 on the top, or it should be above it. It's 0.
Yes, yes. So yeah, that -5 is where it equals 0. So that's going to be brackets. So maybe it's helpful to do that beforehand. I don't know. I've never thought of that before, but I just thought of it now. Okay, to the left of -5, did you guys get positive or negative? Positive? Yeah. In between the two, positive or negative? Negative. To the right of 2, positive. It's not always going to alternate, just so you know. You always have to plug in points. It can be different. Okay, is our answer the negative part or the positive parts? The negative, right? Because we want to look at this. So, we've already written down brackets, -5 to parentheses. It's kind of nice to do that beforehand. Okay. Questions on this one? Okay. Let's do another one of those before they get a little bit harder. Okay, check in with your neighbor. What numbers are on your number line? What'd you get, positive or negative? What does that mean your final answer is? All right, did you guys get -3 and 2/3 on your number line? Okay, which one of these will definitely have parentheses? -3. What about 2/3? Parentheses or brackets? Parentheses, yes, because we're not doing less than or equal to 0. We're just doing strictly less than 0. So that one will also get parentheses. Okay. I always actually like to start in the middle, well, in between those two numbers, because the easiest point to plug in is 0. So if you like starting there, I can see that that's negative right away, which is great. It almost always alternates, but it doesn't always alternate. Does it alternate in this one? Does it go plus, minus, plus? Yeah, it does. But always check to make sure. To the right of 2/3, we can plug in 1. 3 minus 2 is positive. 1 plus 3 is positive. Can plug in -4, so -12 minus 2 is negative. -4 plus 3 is negative. Negative over a negative is a positive. Okay. And do we want the negative region or the positive region? Negative or positive? Negative. We want less than 0. Okay. Questions on that one? All right. We're going to look at some examples now that are going to be a little bit different. Turn to your neighbor. What's different about this one? Okay, what's different?
It's less than or equal to 6.
Yeah. Okay. So, when we have something else on the other side and not 0, what we need to do is we need to subtract. What you're not allowed to do is multiply by x. In an equation, you could do this, and you could cancel out the bottom and have that over there. You cannot do that in an inequality. Remember, if I have -2x is less than 6, and I divide by -2 or I multiply by -1/2, what am I supposed to do in an inequality? Flip the sign, right? So if I multiply by x, is x positive or negative?
Positive.
What was x in the last one? X was all the numbers between -3 and 2/3. Is it positive or negative? Yes, yeah, it's both. It's every single number between -3 and 2/3. X was every single number here between -5 and 2. So it's positive and negative. When we multiply or divide by x on both sides in an inequality, it's going to go crazy. It doesn't work. We can't do it. So what we need to do is subtract and find a common denominator. So we need to get 0 on one side. We're going to subtract 6 from both sides. This is our first time finding a common denominator this year together. We're probably going to do it 100 more times in pre-calc. So it's going to be one of our main strategies for a lot of different things. So just get used to it. We're going to do it a lot. Our common denominator is x minus 3. So I need to multiply the top and bottom by x minus 3. And so now we can combine that to one fraction. We have x plus 2. And what am I going to need to do with that negative 6? Distribute. So minus 6x, and then what?
Plus 18.
Plus 18. So we just need to be careful with that negative sign. Since we have a common denominator, I just already wrote it as one big fraction. Feel free to do that. Now we just need to combine like terms on top. Once we have a common denominator, once we've combined like terms, now we can solve the inequality just like we were doing. So go ahead and solve that one. Fine, make your number line, do the 0 for the top and bottom. And here's what I've got so far, and yeah, we are going to need to plug in like 3.5 or something. Okay, what did we get for our positives and negatives? Jack, what'd you get? Negative, positive, negative. Do we agree? Get the same thing? Do we want the negatives or the positives? The negatives. So I've already marked off my parentheses and brackets there. Negative infinity to 3 parentheses, and then 4 to infinity 4 with brackets there. Questions on this one? Okay, let's do another one of those. You guys go ahead and do this one. Get it to move the 3 to the other side, find a common denominator, and then set up your number line test. And we'll check back in. Okay, let's check this one here. So we have to add 3 to both sides, and what's our common denominator going to be?
3x plus
3x minus 5. So we need to multiply that on the top and bottom. And I like to do this where I just, the next line down, start a new big fraction with one denominator. It's just less writing. So we have 4x plus 1 plus 9x minus 15. We combine like terms and we get 13x minus 14 over 3x minus 5 is greater than or equal to 0. Did you guys get this? Okay. So our numbers on the number line are going to be 14/13 and 5/3. Which one of those is bigger? 5/3 is bigger. 14/13 is very, very close to 1. It's just 1/13 bigger than 1. So that's less than 0.01. So this is like 1.0. It's less than 1.1. Sorry, it's less than 0.1. It's 1.0 something. 5/3 is closer to 2. It's closer to, it's closer to 2. It's 1 2/3. So that's bigger. The ratio there is bigger than 14/13. So 5/3 goes here. And 14/13 goes there. What's a number that we could plug in that's in between those two? 1/2? 1 1/2, yes. Yeah, so this is 1 2/3. This is 1 1/13. So 1.5 is going to go in between there. That one is a little tricky to do. I would, again, don't assume that it alternates, but if I plug in 0, I see it's positive. And when I plug in 2, I see that it's positive. So my guess is that it's negative. It is negative. But when we plug 1.5 in, here's a way to do a little bit less math and a little more logic and reasoning. 13 times 1.5, is that bigger than 14 or smaller than 14? That's going to be bigger than 14. So that means the top of this fraction is going to be positive. And 3 times 1.5 is a lot easier to do. 3 times 1.5 is 4.5. So the bottom of our fraction is going to be what? Negative. So we have a positive over a negative for that one there. So if we're taking the regions that are greater than or equal to 0, which one of these is going to have parentheses? 5/3. And 14/13 will have brackets. So negative infinity to 14/13 union 5/3 to infinity with parentheses. Okay. I want to show you guys the beginning part of one more. Sometimes we might have something like this on the other side. Just like before, we cannot multiply by x, so we can't cross multiply to solve this. What we need to do is we need to get this set equal to 0. And so I just need to move one of those fractions to the other side. I would recommend just moving the negative one. So I can add the whole fraction just like that. What would be my next step here? Yeah, what is my common denominator going to be? Yes, exactly. So that means we're going to have to multiply this one by x plus 1 over x plus 1, and this one by x minus 2 over x minus 2. And you actually definitely want to leave the bottom unfactored here, because we're going to need those numbers for our number line test. On top, we have to distribute. And then combine like terms. How many numbers are there going to be on our number line? 3. There's going to be 3 numbers. -1, 2/7, and 2. And so we're going to have 3 regions that we need to look at. So I wanted to make sure you guys saw that. It's the same process. It's just our common denominator is a little bit more complicated. And we now have 3 regions. So we would need to plug in like -2, 0, 1, and 3. We need to plug in 4 numbers. Okay.